Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Okay, Canto 3, Chapter 32, Text 1. We're starting a new chapter which is called Entanglement in Fruitive Activities.
And it's the next to last chapter. It's a very long one, 72 pages. And yeah, it's like a new chapter. But let's hope
It is a new chapter.
Let's hope our new chapter is an entanglement in fruitive activities. Disentanglement, more like. Okay.
Okay.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Text 1. The personality of Godhead said, the person who lives in the center of all household life derives material benefits by performing religious rituals, and thereby he fulfills his desire for economic development and sense gratification. Again and again he acts the same way. Purport. There are two kinds of householders. One is called the Grihamedi and the other is called the Grihasta. The objective of the Grihamedi is sense gratification, and the objective of the Grihasta is self-realization. Here the Lord is speaking about the Grihamedi, or the person who wants to remain in this material world. His activity is to enjoy material benefits by performing religious rituals for economic development and thereby ultimately satisfy the senses. He does not want anything more. Such a person works very hard throughout his life to become very rich and eat very nicely and drink. By giving some charity for pious activity, he can go to a higher planetary atmosphere in the heavenly planets in his next life. But he does not want to stop the repetition of birth and death and finish with the concomitant miserable factors of material existence. Such a person is called a Grihamedi. I guess this is people, like the majority of people are in this mood of being in family. Well, yeah, actually not most, I would say nearly everyone. Not everyone, nearly. Because that is the pinnacle of, it seems, a happy life, really. Let's be honest. When you come home at the end of the day, you don't need your spouse like being moody and whatnot, and the kids all snotty and running around. You know, people want to come back and it's a warm, it's a warm home, and you've got a loving partner and everyone's happy and one is providing and there's food, and because those personalities are the object of your happiness, like you base your happiness on those people, then for one thing, if something happens, it's pretty devastating. People can, but the other thing is you then plan with these objects of my affection. Yeah, let's go here and like enjoy at the weekend. Let's go on holiday. You know, everything is centered around those personalities who make up your home life, isn't it? And that's normal. No, in the sense that, like, I'm not saying it to them and us criticize, but I'm saying that is for the best part how you are conditioned, and it's seen as that's normal. You grow up, you go to school, go to uni, whatever, you get a job, and then people, when you're getting married, when you're having kids, where do you live? You know, like that. Those are and if you tick those sort of boxes as many as you can, it's like you've succeeded, and that's normal life. And there isn't, and most people, I guess, when you get to a certain age, then you start to question, like, or think kind of like a grihasta, whereby you think, is there more? because you start to think, I'm getting old, I'm not going to be around, and these people are not going to be around. Why are we here? Or is there more? Or how can I prolong this experience, you know? Then you start to think out of the box. But while you're in the box and enjoying, there's no reason to think outside of it. Does that make sense?
Kind of, yeah.
Do you have any other further points?
Well,
I just realised my top's the same colour as that question behind me.
well, the other thing was that it's important to get distinction here, as you just brought up. So you have a Grihasta and a Grihamedi. The Grihamedi, although we're hearing here, and you just said it's 80-90% of the people, but in actual fact, and this is kind of explained here, but I also have heard it explained in other places where Prabhupada refers to this term, a Grihamedi is actually quite an advanced person. So for sure, 80-90% of the population are not Grihamedis, although we may kind of refer to them, and Srila Prabhupada kind of positions that it is like Grihastas and then there's the rest. But Grihamedis actually perform yajna. See, it says performing religious rituals for material benefits. So actually Grihamedis means they'll perform yajnas. They do sacrificial ceremonies. They're religious people, but they're using religiosity in order to create and generate economic development and sense gratification and like that. Now, of course, a large part of the population who are religious probably do religion like that. But Grihastas is slightly different because they're spiritually minded, religious, spiritually minded, they're devotional, but they're doing it, trying to do it specifically for the purpose of Krishna, which I was thinking with regards to what you were saying, that, yeah, of course, the natural propensity amongst every living entity is to be happy. We're anandamayo bhyasat, which means that we're naturally seeking pleasure. So that's not uncommon, and that's to be expected, and we should do that, and we can do that because it's part of our nature, but we should try to do that in such a way that it also brings pleasure to Krishna, or by bringing pleasure to Krishna we naturally feel happy and blissful. That's really the distinction. Otherwise, because we naturally look for bliss and happiness, we do it on the material or mundane platform in order to feel instant gratification, but the higher levels of bliss are available when we clearly serve Krishna and we feel just naturally fulfilled and happy. So that's a few thoughts.
Oh, okay, it's gone completely against what I just said.
Did it? I thought it complimented what you said.
Yeah, it did. Okay.
Okay. But that's great. That's Griha life. We'll figure out in a minute whether we're Grihamedis or Grihastas.
Alright.
Alright. My reading next.
Yes.
A Grihasta is a person who lives with family, wife, children, and relatives, but has no attachment for them. Interesting. He prefers to live in family life rather than as a mendicant or sannyasi, but his chief aim is to achieve self-realization or to come to the standard of Krishna consciousness. So, one place Srila Prabhupada said that specifically for man should be detached in his family life, but he should do it in such a way that the wife doesn't even know he's detached, kind of thing. And it should be the same for the wife. The wife should also be detached, but it's not that the man should know that she really couldn't give two figs, so like that. Here, however, Lord Kapila is speaking about the Grihamedis. That was the other point that I wanted to mention, that most often when family life is quote-unquote derided or condemned in the Bhagavatam, it isn't grihastha life, it's grihamedi life. It's a life where we just get together for the purpose of procreating, enjoying that process, making money, and living in some level of opulence and for our own personal sense gratification without really keeping God in the center and performing activities for His pleasure. So most often when the when married life is derided in the Bhagavatam or condemned, it's that kind of married life, not a married life where the focus is with Krishna in the center and like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sure. Here, however, Lord Kapila Deva is speaking about the Grihamedis who have made their aim the materialistically prosperous life, which they achieve by sacrificial ceremonies. So you see, Grihamedis are actually very advanced. Most people are not even at the level of Grihamedi. They're just what Vedic culture would consider animals, basically. They're not... Yeah, because they're, you have to put God in the picture somehow to come out of animal life. Anyway, the sacrificial ceremonies by charities and by good work. They are posted in good positions, and since they know that they are using up their assets of pious activities, they again and again perform activities of sense gratification. It is said by Prahlad Maharaj, Puna Punascharvita Charvananam. They prefer to chew the already chewed. Again and again they experience the material pangs, even if they are rich and prosperous, but they do not want to give up this kind of life. Yeah, and let's be honest, we can all relate a little bit to that. We try to rehash the same old hashtags, the same old things again and again and again, thinking, I'm going to get some pleasure out of this. I'm going to have fun this time. I'm going to enjoy. But ultimately, more or less, it just usually leads to some suffering or some difficulty.
Yeah. Okay, text 2. Such persons are ever bereft of devotional service due to being too attached to sense gratification, and therefore, although they perform various kinds of sacrifices and take great vows to satisfy the demigods and forefathers, they are not interested in Krishna consciousness devotional service. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 20, it is said that persons who worship demigods have lost their intelligence. Kamastaste ritagyana. They are much attracted to sense gratification, and therefore they worship the demigods. It is of course recommended in the Vedic scriptures that if one wants money, health or education, then he should worship the various demigods. A materialistic person has manifold demands, and thus there are manifold demigods to satisfy his senses. The Grihamedis who want to continue a prosperous materialistic way of life generally worship the demigods or the forefathers by offering pinda or respectful oblations. Such persons are bereft of Krishna consciousness and are not interested in devotional service to the Lord. This kind of so-called pious and religious man is the result of impersonalism. The impersonalists maintain that the Supreme Absolute Truth has no form and that one can imagine any form he likes for his benefit and worship in that way. Therefore, the Grihamedis or materialistic men say that they can worship any form of a demigod as worship of the Supreme Lord. Especially amongst the Hindus, those who are meat-eaters prefer to worship goddess Kali because it is prescribed that one can sacrifice a goat before that goddess. They maintain that whether one worships the goddess Kali or the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu or any demigod, the destination is the same. This is first-class rascaldom.
Rascals!
And such people are misled, but they prefer this philosophy. Bhagavad Gita does not accept such rascaldom, and it is clearly stated that such methods are meant for persons who have lost their intelligence. The same judgment is confirmed here, and the word karma muda, meaning one who has lost his sense or is infatuated by the lust of attraction for sense gratification, is used. Karma mudas are bereft of Krishna consciousness and devotional service, and are infatuated by a strong desire for sense gratification. The worshippers of demigods are condemned both in Bhagavad Gita and in Srimad Bhagavatam.
Wow, there you go.
It's quite funny, really, because like the way I explain demigods when if you're preaching or people that don't know, in one sense, it's like they're like department heads, you know. This one's in charge of the rain, this one's in charge of the wind, you know. So, and you become, if you're a department head in the hierarchy of a company, then you have like the chief executive, obviously a CEO, and then you have the people under him, and then within those departments they will have their own people. But it's not a small position, so it's not a small position for, I mean, it's a big enough position if you work for like Virgin Media or I don't know, what's that, IBM, does that still exist?
Anyway,
Apple.
maybe Apple, Windows, or not Windows,
Microsoft. Word,
yeah.
no. Anyway.
Just Microsoft. You're really showing. They say a fool is realized when they open their mouth.
I'm old. So anyway, the point is that within this world, if someone says, you know what, what do you do? I'm a department head. Head of a department in Apple and whatever, Sainsbury's, Tesco. You still be like, oh, so to be a department head in the universe, it's a pretty damn, big thing. No? What does your son do? Oh, he's a department head of the material world. Oh.
He's in charge of air. He's in charge of the sun. He's in charge of the moon.
So then it just amuses me whenever, Prabhupada says it's not Prabhupada's repeating what is being said in the Sastra and by Krishna and that, but that, you're basically lost your intelligence if you worship these people, and if, you're rascals, and here at the last sentences, the worshippers of demigods are condemned, both in the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. So if I was like that department head, I'd be like, hold on a minute.
Boycotting Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, starting your own.
I don't know, you'd feel as an employee, as it were. You'd be like, I don't feel valued. It's just amusing, but it's interesting. Part of me is thinking, because Krishna's basically saying, I may have empowered these personalities to manage these different areas for me, but I never said you have to go and worship them. They're the workers, but the worship comes to me. But because you're a bit stupid, you're getting enamoured by my workers, but that's all they are. They're just the factory staff. And why are you going to the factory staff?
Well, in the Gita, Krishna also says that he gives the faith by which we do worship the demigods. He's the origin of that faith. And also he says that you do worship me, but in an indirect way. So he says different things. But as Prabhupada quotes here, the main thing is that he says that you're less intelligent if you worship demigods, right?
Yeah, you're rascals.
You're rascals. But we see that there are so many people who are worshipping demigods. I mean, when we say so many people, I mean from India or other Asian countries will worship demigods. I think even amongst Buddhists they have some concept of demigods.
Well, even in Greek philosophy, there's god of this, god of that, no?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many Greeks still worship the Greek gods, though. I think that's kind of a bit of a thing. And of course they consider that mythology, or as Prabhupada used to say, mythology. But people still do it, and the point is they do it for a specific, often greedy or self-motivated purpose. So the Vedic texts, or at least not all Vedic texts, because most of the Vedic texts do encourage it, because at least it's better than not having any faith at all or worship at all. At least you're
there's some
worshiping.
regulation.
Yeah,
There's some coming
but
to some, may not be what we agree with, like putting a goat on the altar, but amongst the different practices, some. Yeah.
Well, some piety, some spirituality, some connection with God is there.
Yeah.
So that's better than none.
Yeah.
And the whole Vedic process is to how to get on the ladder and keep making progress.
Yeah.
And if someone is a worshiper of the demigods and performs some yajna, then when the yajnik Brahmin comes and installs Vishnu, then they're worshipping Vishnu. And they realize, oh, well, all the offerings went to Vishnu, how come I'm worshipping some other demigod? So they might get some clue or some idea like that.
And also in the Bhagavatam it says that Lord Shiva is the greatest Vaishnav. So, and he is a very compassionate and always meditating on the Lord. So my understanding is that demigods are devotees of Krishna, Vishnu anyway. So they, like you said, the stepping stone that they would help you or push you or whatever, gear you, steer you towards Krishna.
Yeah, in the beginning. But as we make progress, we should understand that I don't need to worship anything other than, why do I need to worship different branches when I can just water the root? And that becomes the whole key, that we should actually water the root, which is Krishna.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Hope everyone's warm, because it's extremely cold these days.
Yeah. Okay, so
That's cool.
we could go on for hours, but this is Bhagavatam Bites after all, so there's a little bite of nectar, a couple of verses, starting next to the last chapter of third canto, 32. And we'll see you next time. Hare Krishna. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.